Every single day I'm asked, how's the market? And when I answer that question, I try to be careful. Who's asking? Buyer, seller, House Sigma, real estate, junkie type? And then I cater my answer accordingly. Well, we're going to do it differently. We're going to have a blast with this one because I'm going to give you a sneak peek behind the curtain, if you will. How's the market for 2025 or how it was for me? Well, take a look and then you decide. So I'm going to show you a video of a condo I had conditionally sold. We had 1 day before conditions were waived to go firm. And this is what I walked into 24 hours before it was supposed to go firm. So these are firefighters, bathtub flooded. There's about an inch of standing water. Now here you'll see as you go to the first floor of the condo, water everywhere, complete mess. 5 firefighters in there looking for the shutoff valve. This is what my Sunday evening looked like. Now, obviously, this is not every single deal, but this is just one of the things, right? And obviously, the deal didn't go through, and that was an entire mess. And also, we found out seller didn't have insurance just to make it a little bit more fun. But again, we're not done yet. We're just getting started, okay? So, Vas, how is the market? Well, what you're looking at right here is where I had $500,000 worth of HVAC equipment stolen from me. This is a building I owned with a partner, and we had sold it with a vendor take-back mortgage. So the people that were in there, they were paying us interest. It was supposed to be closed off end of 2024, I believe. Anyway, long story short, they stopped paying in their 3rd year. But before that, they made sure they cleaned out the entire building of any equipment that was of value so that they could stay afloat. So they took out about $500,000 worth of HVAC equipment. These are heat pumps that were all stolen. Now, they went as far as even taking out HVAC ducts. These are pretty expensive. So now the people here are not the actual thieves. What ended up happening is the people that were in the building that had quote unquote bought it from us, they basically liquidated it and sold it to all these HVAC trades who then took it for pennies on the dollar. And this is how we ended up with this building. Now, this came to us as a surprise because obviously we had no idea this was happening. Thankfully, we had surveillance and we found all this evidence. So then we moved on to the next step, and that would have been to put the building under power of sale through what's called peaceful possession. So that's kind of like what my days were filled with as I was trying to run my real estate business. So here we are. Our lawyer drafted up the little notice you put in the window that the building has been repossessed, locks are changed, all that good stuff. Here's the kicker. We went to the police with everything that had happened, and they said that they can't do anything about this because it's a civil matter. So how was my 2025? So far, so good. We are not done yet. Now, when it comes to real estate deals, I love a little bit of action, a little bit of drama just to keep things spicy, just to keep us on our toes, right? So this is a direct threat where an arbitrator / mediator in a divorce sale was threatening me with this line right here, costs are reserved, because he felt I added court costs in this divorce sale. So if basically something didn't go through, I would be getting sued for a bunch of money. So long story short, I've done a bunch of divorce sales, I think 3 in the last 24 months and 3 in the last 12 months. And I got to tell you, this is probably one of the worst real estate deals you can do. So imagine a down market, 2 people that absolutely hate each other and not on speaking terms. Then they both have multiple lawyers on each side. They're raiding them for money, absolutely just crushing them. And then you have a judge, which is basically an arbitrator or a mediator. And every single decision that you can't come to terms with has to go through an arbitrator, and then the arbitrator gets involved in the middle of the sale, and yakety yak. Point being here is I've been through multiple of these, and they are absolutely draining. They're energy vampires. Anyway, so I got threatened to be sued by a lawyer here. No fault of my own, but again, I have to take it. So when somebody asks, how's the market? Well, that's how the market is, but I have to take all of that, put it over here, and I have to focus on what my clients are going through, because this is one thing, but what my clients are going through and just everybody else in real estate right now, very difficult. 2025 was absolute trash, and 2026 is probably going to be more of the same. And I can't stress this enough, but this is when experience and competence really come through, because I'm seeing sellers and buyers get completely destroyed in this market due to poor advice, poor guidance, and things of that nature. So just let this be a lesson. Be careful who you work with. But let's get into the stats very quickly, because 2026, oh boy, brace yourselves. This is what price action looks like on the worst year on record in the last 2 to 3 decades, excluding 2022. That was an anomaly year. We dropped in median price almost 10%. This is insane. This is something that we haven't seen, I don't know since when. Now, as you guys know, those of you who watch the channel, you're not like, you're not rattled by the headlines. You know what's up. You know seasonality has a big play in this. But boy, even seasonality right now, I mean, we are kind of following a seasonal pattern, but the disconnect on price is wild. And this is not because there are no buyers or there's no appetite for real estate. This is entirely because decision making is broken, especially with buyers and sellers as well. And that has to do with a lack of understanding of the market, a lack of good advice, and just general disconnect from reality, mostly on the seller side, a little bit on the buyer side. Both parties are to blame. But let me recap for you. In real estate, there's this secret window of 6 weeks where you're going to get some of the best deals that you can possibly get. And that secret window is kind of third week of December until end of January. This is the secret window where I have probably gotten some of my best deals for myself and my clients. So that's right now. Shopping right now, you're going to get the best deals based on seasonal norms. Generally never fails. It's winter, nobody's schlepping around looking at listings. The hype is not there, especially in all this doom and gloom that you're seeing across the board. The mindset right now is usually short-lived. So right now the bad news is out here and it's probably going to sustain over January. But usually what we see towards February is a big spike in prices. Even in bad markets, usually things spike no matter what, just because more buyers are coming out of the woodwork. Like I told you, there's a lot of people here, not enough housing. So buyers are out there, and I promise you transactions are going to happen, but pricing is really very sensitive right now. Here's an example of 2024 where we ended the year similarly to 2025 in a negative state. So we had prices drop year over year. But then you had this huge spike in February. And this is very common where in years where you had massive drops towards December and January, usually February you see a big increase because people are like, oh my God, I got to get in. Action gets in there, and there's usually not enough inventory because listings are just starting to come on the market. If this is going to happen this year, obviously I have no idea, but this is definitely on the table. It's not to show that there's going to be a recovery, but if you're a seller, this is kind of when you want to be coming on the market, and as a buyer, you probably want to be acting right now before this potentially happens. Now, you have to keep in mind that for 2026, there is one thing that's kind of brewing right now, and banks are starting to account for it, where they're starting to have large mortgage loss provisions, and they're accruing for that right now. What that means is they're anticipating in 2026 more people are going to default on their mortgages, and specifically in the weaker areas. So weaker areas that are not blue chip. So let's call it like the Durhams, Peel, Hamilton, not 416 Toronto, not most of York region, things like that. So the banks are anticipating that. Could they be wrong? Possibly, but given how 2025 ended and where mortgage rates are right now, 2026 has a high probability of being very similar to 2025, which is going to be a difficult conversation to have with sellers. And also for buyers, it's very difficult to determine at what point do you jump in. And that's an entirely different conversation because that really matters on where you are age-wise, where you are earning potential-wise, and how long you plan to keep a property for. Now, on the liquidity end, in terms of deal flow, in December, we were supposed to do 4,400 transactions. We did almost 3,700. So this is actually good news. As you can see, these two lines are getting closer together. This is important. This is showing us that we're getting back to seasonal norms, but how this is going to play out in 2026 is basically up to anyone's guess. But here's the important thing to consider. The biggest reason sellers are losing out right now, especially sellers, is because of mispricing of their home. And as an example, earlier today, so today is January 7th, I went for a listing appointment. I actually went on an appointment with my seller clients where we went and looked at another property that's up for sale just down the street. It's our competition, very similar home, similar, size, amenities, all that stuff. The reason we did that is they have to walk through the competing property so that they can understand what buyers are seeing when in a month from now we list their property and everybody's going to be comparing us to this one that hopefully is sold by then. And this also gives the sellers a reality check in terms of expectations because, for all they know, they may think their house is worth $200,000 more. Now that they've seen one that's listed at $200,000 less and it sells for that, what does that mean for them when they list their house? Well, if the market improves, obviously you're going to be looking to squeeze out more money out of buyers, but is that going to be the case or is that going to be a real possibility? That is to be determined. But mispricing continues to be the biggest mistake agents and sellers make, and this is where buyers can take advantage of somebody that is underprepared or not educated. I will give you two examples. I wish I could show them to you, but for confidentiality reasons I can't. But in the last 12 months, I had two properties where I was selling a house next to another house that was for sale. Same street. One was actually right next to us, identical house. We ended up netting $100,000 or $90,000 more. And on another one, we netted $125,000 more. They were just 5 houses over. And a lot has to do with the advice you get from your agent and how you come on the market and how you treat buyers and kind of if you're standoffish or not. But if you, as the seller, are dictating the price of what you think your house is worth and your agent is not pushing back or is not coming back with evidence as to why that is not the case, good luck to you. You're going to need it. And that is not to say, I've been fortunate enough, a lot of my clients that I've met with, we've been pretty much in the same ballpark when we've estimated what their house is worth. And that's always nice to see, but that's not always the case. And sometimes I have to be like, hey, you're not going to get that. Maybe work with somebody else or somebody that's going to promise you that number. If you've made it this far, congratulations. You already knew it, but you're definitely smarter than the average bear. You already knew active listings are going to drop substantially because time of year. And they're probably going to come down again maybe in January. Maybe they're going to stay flat. Who knows? This is what's going to create that opportunity for buyers to get in and snatch up people that are absolutely desperate, that they're not getting any sort of action on their listings. I want to thank everybody that watches this channel, that subscribes, that likes the videos, that comments, those of you who email me and text me your questions. I appreciate all of it. It's important to note that we are not the first ones going through what's called a difficult market, and we're not going to be the last ones. So when somebody asks me how's the market, honestly, I kind of prefer this market because it really splits the riffraff from the rest of us who are actually getting stuff done in this market. And I wish you all good luck for 2026. Be careful who you work with. I think there is light at the end of the tunnel. I think 2026 is probably the last year of this so-called bloodbath, but I think it's also not a bad thing. Affordability is restoring. I think it's very important for younger people to be able to get into homes. We could probably use further declines in housing prices. I mean, if I was 25, 29, and I was looking to buy a house, I wanted to start a family, like how do you do it? It's very, very challenging. So the earth is healing in a way. It is at the expense of some of us and to the benefit of others, but it's just another cycle that's going to keep repeating. With that, have a happy 2026, and I'll see you next month.